Hello everyone, David Adler, President of HAA, and we're doing a discussion today about the Wentworth by-election and in particular an analysis as to why the government is now faced with the disaster that's on its hands and could it have been averted. And I have with me the former member for Wentworth, Peter King, who I must say is a personal friend. We've known each other for some years, and this is not a discussion about HAA policy, this is an opinion piece. So Peter, welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And can you say a little about yourself for people who don't know you, what you do, a little of your background?
Well, I'm presently practicing as a barrister. I practice broadly across the country, and I do a lot of work in the banking space, helping both farmers and others, small business people, and a broad variety of public issues. Of course, I have a strong association with this area. David, as you know, is the former mayor for Wallara and also as the former member for the federal seat of Wentworth.
Right. Now, Peter's too modest to say that he was also a Rhodes Scholar, but I'll throw that into the mix. And you got elected to Parliament in what year?
2001.
So you were in your first term, towards the end of your first term, when something happened that sort of cut your parliamentary career short a bit. What happened?
Well, it's not what you would describe as a vagary of politics. It's something that was completely unexpected because I was working away busily for the local people in Canberra, and I suddenly got wind of news, in fact, about 4 days before the relevant deadline of the so-called mother of all branch stacks.
Right. So for those of you who haven't heard the term, it's become infamous in Liberal Party folklore. This is where Malcolm Turnbull went around and rapidly brought into membership of the Liberal Party, was it 1,000 in the local branch or some number of that order?
Well, I don't know that it was rapidly. It was done over several months.
Okay.
A bit like a city corporate takeover. And this was not known to us because the people who were being used were people who had no association or links with the Liberal Party, but were employees or tenants. But at the last minute, all these forms were, which had apparently been in some safe in the city, were lodged with the then State Director, Mr. Scott Morrison, and processed in the space of 4 days.
Okay.
I should tell you that it normally takes the Liberal Party about 6 months to process these things.
Well, that's interesting. That's Peter's assessment of what happened. Now, it's a matter of public record that Malcolm Turnbull was attempted to get Labor appointment. Graham Richardson has confirmed recently that he went into then Senator Richardson's office and asked to be fast-tracked into some post when Graham was the numbers man for the Labor Party. So we had the extraordinary situation that you faced of the mother of all branch stacks from a rejected Labor candidate.
Well, that's surprising, isn't it? I know Kim Beazley has made the same observation. Apparently he was also approached, like Mr. Richardson. And I know of one other senior Labor senator who was likewise approached.
So the head office of the Liberal Party allowed this to happen, and I was an observer at the pre-selection meeting, which was the most extraordinary political meeting I've ever attended. I was not a pre-selective, I was there as an observer. And I saw a few people stand up, tear up their Liberal Party membership. There was enormous disenchantment when Malcolm Turnbull was selected as the candidate.
I remember that, and I remember a beautiful lady, Julie Lowy. I don't know if you know her, but she was one of my dear friends and supporters. She and several of her friends did exactly that. Mm.
Yeah. So Malcolm Turnbull gets into Parliament, and I think at the time Brendan Nelson was the leader of the Liberal Party. Is that correct?
The Federal Liberal Party, no. I can't recall. No, John Howard was the leader of the
John
Federal
Howard initially.
Liberal Party, yes.
Okay. And then after John Howard left, Brendan Nelson?
Well, after John Howard lost his own seat of Bennelong and then lost the general election in 2007, there was a new leadership in the Liberal Party. I think, as you rightly say, it was initially Brendan Nelson, and then I think it may have been Malcolm Turnbull, and then Tony Abbott.
Right. So there was a mix of leaders going on there. I don't say anything that's not a matter of public record, but the relationship between Malcolm Turnbull and the other leaders, initially Brendan Nelson and then Tony Abbott, we've heard reports that it wasn't all that constructive.
Well, that's a shame, isn't it? Because, it's difficult to get good people into public life, David, as you know, and intelligent and balanced people, or people with different points of view, but who are prepared to project that point of view out there so that it gives the community an opportunity to say yay or nay. And so a time of toxic relations occurred between people who were potential leaders, all of whom had something to give. And instead of bringing those people together, they were separated, and there was too much venom passing between them.
Yeah.
Not in the interests of the Australian people.
Okay. So we now fast forward to current times, and we have seen fractures in the Liberal Party on a range of policy issues that someone who you might have expected who would put up their hands to be a Labor candidate would embrace climate change, not support the repeal of 18C, free speech, same-sex marriage, not tackle energy policy. There's also been issues around our role in the UN and foreign aid, etc. And these things have just compounded. And of course, Malcolm Turnbull lost the leadership a couple of months ago, and since then, in fact, on the very day that he lost the leadership, we saw a reaction that you were familiar with all those years ago.
Well, some might say, if you were a Shakespearean scholar, for example, that his exits were rather like his entrances. But that's perhaps for others to judge and assess in due course. But I think what we can say is that the new leadership around Scott Morrison had an opportunity, a distinct opportunity in this Wentworth by-election that's just happened, to put forward a new approach, a new direction for the national coalition, liberal national parties. And I think one of the regrets of the Wentworth by-election is that didn't happen. I'm not saying it's a failure of leadership, but I am saying that it's a failure to take up that important opportunity and give to the Australian people and allow it to be tested in one by-election, albeit an important one, a new approach.
Indeed. And of course, to the extent that there was frustration that Malcolm Turnbull had ceased to be the representative of Wentworth, he disappeared at the beginning of the campaign and stayed away the entire campaign, not returning until the Monday thereafter.
Well, of course, the candidates had a different view about that. I think Karen Phelps said that that was evidence of the bitter divide within the Liberal Party.
for sure.
But Dave Sharma, the Liberal candidate, I think positively said that he would have appreciated more help.
Yeah, that's a very diplomatic way of putting it, coming from a former diplomat. Indeed, I haven't seen anything like it in my decades of observing politics in this country. So that's it really. An analysis that has not been brought out adequately in the aftermath of the Wentworth by-election is that we had in Wentworth a very competent and popular member who'd served the local community for years in a number of respects, including having been mayor, somebody who is also a Rhodes Scholar. For some reason, the Liberal Party machine decided to allow a mother of all branch stacks, decided to allow the pre-selection of a rejected Labor candidate. Now, had that not occurred, you may well have still been member for Wentworth, Peter, and this disaster that the government is facing today would have been averted.
Well, I suppose you can speculate on those things, David, and as you quite properly are. And of course, when a door closes, a window opens. And sometimes, though, both windows close. Whether there could have been better outcomes for the Australian people or for the Liberal national parties are, I think, very important questions. I think there were better possibilities, that we are in a situation now where there's a real call by the Australian people for some sensible leadership, new directions, a new approach. The new team had an opportunity to do that in the Wentworth by-election. I think they now must move forward and take that opportunity up with both hands.
Yeah, not a lot of time. Now, I should add for completeness that in 2004, Peter decided to stand as an independent, got 18% of the vote, thereabouts. And then there was some lobbying that you be suspended from the Liberal Party for quite a period of time.
Well, like Ovid, like the poet Ovid, I went into exile. But in fact,
10 years, wasn't it?
Yes, but in fact, I did the right thing. I resigned.
Right.
And I did the right thing, I think, in the interests of the Liberal Party, because what happened to me should not have happened. And a lot of my friends and supporters thought that. And indeed, as events turned out, the Liberal Party changed all its rules to make sure it didn't happen again.
Right. Okay.
But the gate was locked, and so it was very difficult for someone like me to do it. But nonetheless, I hope properly and courteously and in the public interest, I've continued to advance those Liberal values for which I stand, and which I know are important to many of the people who've supported me over the years. And I was pleased to be able to seek to advocate those again recently.
Okay. Well, Peter, thank you very much for your time. I think we've made the point that there were alternate paths, and indeed the seeds of this disaster for the Liberal Party were actually planted in 2004. And, people need to understand that it was an avoidable tragedy. Thank you very much, Peter, so much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.